Welcome back. So we've been through Marvelous Designer and we do have ourselves a cape. So what we'll do, we'll bring that straight in, and there it is. So David has done a fantastic job on this, I think, very quickly as well. And as he says, Marvelous Designer is becoming more the norm in the film and games industries. So it's really great to see this do this very quickly. And it's a very simple setup for this. It's not very taxing, but it's nice to see this sort of happen. There's a few areas that I think we'll need to sort of look at, because when you use this stuff in a movie, from my experience, what happens is as lovely as that looks, this all needs retopologizing, because basically it's too dense, and even though it's quads, it's all over the place. The other thing is there's intersection sort of going on, sort of folds and collision. So things like that do need to be addressed, because what happens is they'll build this lovely cape and another department will take it over and will do new simulations. So it needs to be as clean as possible. So if this guy was to be flying through the air and the whole cape was spread out like a bat wing, you couldn't possibly calculate it all properly because of this issue going on here. But needless to say, as a pose or a standing pose, that it does it great. But what we'll do, we're going to use the retopologizing tools. I'm going to go through a few pieces, and then what we're going to do, we're going to cut from there, because I don't want you to see me do the entire cape. So we're going to build it to about sort of here. I'll give you an overview once again of the retopologizing tools in Maya and for the modeling toolkit, and then we'll pause there, and then what we'll do, we'll come back and then we'll flip that geometry across to give us a better sort of looking cape. So what we'll do, I'm not going to do it completely symmetrically, because obviously the two sides are different. So what we'll do, we'll build sort of this half, like I say, and then we'll come back. What I'll do, I'll be extending all the way down and then producing a sort of a bat sort of wing shape pattern as it drags on the floor. So first thing we need to do is select our cape mesh, okay, then choose this magnet here where it says no live surface. Just hit that. Now cape 1 is now a live surface. So if we select that, we've got this strange sort of live surface green going on. So that's all good. So then we need to go to mesh tools, which is under your modeling menu, okay, or the modeling module. So we've already got that open, so the modeling toolkit is already there, and all I'm going to do is use quad draw. Okay, it's very easy. For those of you who have tried to use it unsuccessfully, it is very basic. So it's basically click, click, click. So we're going to go all the way around. That's around the middle, I would say. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll do another one. So we'll make it sort of 10 all the way around. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and then all you need to do, oh, we've lost one there. Let's just get rid of that. Okay, so I'm just going to close off the outliner. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do 6 instead. Let's go there. We just move this guy about. Okay, there. Just get it a little bit more tangible for us to work with. So just doing this even though it's under the cowl, it is sticking to the cape. So we want another one, and then another one, and then another 3. So that's all working well. So there we go. So then all we need to do is begin to do that again, and then holding the shift key down till you get this highlight between the 4 points, just simply click and it gives you a polygon. So I'll do another one, click, polygon, and so on. So you would go around and you would build up your mesh like this to get something more usable for whatever it is that you are actually doing in your movie or your game or whatever. So it all needs to be sort of clean and usable. Okay, and that's that. So I'm just going to space that out a little bit more, just turn off B because I've got kind of a soft mod going on there. Just going to move things around a little bit, like so. There we go. And there. Okay. So it's all looking good. So I'm going to do some more. just quad that up. So you're probably thinking, you know, what about all these lumps and bumps, these beautiful bits of material that we've got going on? Not a problem. First thing that you really want to worry about is your edge flow, and you know how you're going to place everything. What we'll do, this will gradually come straight down and sort of flatten out as we get towards the center anyway, but do tweak as you go, even at this early stage. It is important, because you could sort of run into trouble a bit later on. So as you can see there, you know, that's a straight quad, which is a round shoulder. Same with this one. And all you need to do to add an extra edge loop in to shape that is simply hit the control key and then just you know, just gently sort of gesture the cursor over where you want to go across any edge, and just simply add another one. Just simply click it, and the same with that one as well. And you can do the same with any of these as well, but we'll do all that afterwards. For now, I just want to get this shape blocked out as best as I can. So as I said, we'll get down to about halfway, and then I'll pause and then get on with the rest, because I don't think you want to see me sort of going around clicking every point for this cape, and then we'll come back and get on with the rest. So we'll just do this. I'll just keep explaining this method just for a little bit longer, and then yeah, you can crack on yourselves and you know, move ahead in the video or whatever it is you want to do, and yeah, come back and we'll get on with the rest. So I'm just, as I've said, I'm just placing this stuff, just shaping it around. Okay. There we go. Just going to pull that around as well. As you can see, it's getting straighter and straighter as I get lower down, because I just tried to keep the flow with the shoulders, just to keep it all nice. And then there, and we'll just pull that one down as well, and just pull that across. Right, so we'll do one more row. There, there. There. Okay. Then all you do is just move those. Click those in, move them around. Now the other thing, as you can see here, it's a little bit wonky. What you can do is hold the shift key down and just use it like a brush over it, and it will just sort of relax everything that you've done. Even though, you know, nothing is sort of happening with this part, that's just a case of adding edge loops and stuff down there. So I'll just do that one. Okay, so you can see it's starting to pop. It will need another one in there, as will this one as well, and as will this one. So these will all need extra sort of attention, building the mesh to fit the rest of the cape. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to undo those, because the problem is if you start adding too many, you start adding too many dots and it becomes too many to sort of join up. So the thing to do is keep it low all the way down to where you need to progress to, and then come back and then just start adding those loops in again. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to build the cape all the way down to the bottom, and then what we're going to do, we're going to start to look at that sort of bat wing shape for the bottom of that, cut that off, flip that over and join it to the other side. So I shall be back very, very shortly, and we can get on with that. So cheers for now. Okay, so there we go, welcome back. So that's as far as I've got with that, and what we're going to do now is do a little bit of, just a little bit of editing. And what I'm going to do is just grab those edges. Whoops, wrong window. So just going to grab those edges, straighten them out like so, and what we're going to do is extrude those out like so. And then I'm just going to spread them just a little bit, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this half off. Okay, and then we're going to shape this up and then duplicate that across. So I'm just going to grab that from that point, which I think will suffice. Delete that, and then what we'll do, we'll shape this side out. So let's get this sucker sorted. So I'm just going to create a kind of wing sort of shape, sort of like a bat wing, like so. And we'll just shape this up into here. Just pull that one out just a bit more. So that all makes sense now. Okay, so let's just snap that just over a little bit here. There we go. Just bring that down. And as you can see, it's not touching the floor at the moment, but that's okay. What I'd like to do is actually get that shaped up first, and then we can do all that stuff afterwards, which is good. If we grab this one, just move that across, and if we just start to round that one and grab that one, and then we'll push that one, I think about there, and there's the next middle one. Okay, there we go. So that's that shape done. So what I'd like to do now is actually get that to sit on the floor. So we'll just hit X and snap that down to the grid. Okay, like so. And then we'll grab those ones, pull those up. I think about halfway will suffice with that. That's pretty good. And then what we'll do, start to add a loop in. Let's do one for halfway first. I'll go to Mesh Tools, sorry, Edit Mesh, Edit Edge Flow. So we get that curve back going into that. And then we'll do the same again here. Edit Mesh, Edge Flow, and so on. So you can see what's going on there. Okay, so we just need a few more versions of that to deal with the area. Okay. So we probably could have done this in Marvelous, but we would have needed a special pattern to actually go ahead and do this. I mean, there's no reason why you can't find a pattern and then edit it and then do it yourself as to how it's all going to sort of flow. But you know, the idea was just to show you how to generate a very simple cloth mesh in Marvelous Designer. So it's very, very cool. And it's a nice change as well. It just sort of breaks everything up from the Maya sort of aspect, if you will. Okay, so let's just rotate that, move that, just rotate that back just a little bit there. Okay, and what we'll do, actually, I'll bring that forward just to make it look a little bit more natural with the flow of that, and we'll just bring that forward as well, and so on. And there we go, so that's all good. So what we need to do now is add a couple more loops in here, and that's done there. So all I'm going to do now is just add extra divisions without the worrying of the actual edge flow now. So we do another one there and another one in there, and what we'll do is now duplicate that. So if I just grab all of those faces like so, and what I'm going to do is duplicate that face, delete some history, deselect, actually let's select that all again. Okay, like so. Get the move tool, just make sure it's centered, and then go to the channel box, do -1 on X. Okay, like so. I know it doesn't quite fit at this moment in time, but we will get it to all sort of gel together, and yeah, we should be good to go. So what we're going to do is probably a little bit of editing, because obviously the edge flow is going to be slightly different here and there, but it's not a problem. So what we'll do is we'll combine these meshes together, and like so. So you always tend to come across things like this, bit of a pain sometimes, but you know, it's a necessary evil in some cases. I'm just going to zero those out like that. As you can see, again, a bit more editing to do, but for the most part, you know, we're doing a customized version now, as opposed to completely following the lower portion of the Marvelous Designer cape that David kindly has done for us. So we'll just zero that out as well. Okay, so now what we need to do is start to look at how the mesh is all working, and then start to shape it all together. So first of all, what I think we need to do is just count 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to have to start to sort of snap things and move things around now. Okay, so it's a bit of a mission, but it will work very well. And what I'm going to do is, with that tool itself, so if we go to the soft selection, I'm just going to do it on surface, so it just affects that area itself. Okay, now I'm just going to move that back to about there, which is good. And we'll start to grab this guy, just decrease the fall off a little bit, and we're just going to push that across, and we're going to just move it all across, just so it just sort of flows into that edge. Okay, like so. And then what we'll do, we'll start to link everything up. So we may have to lose a few loops in order to get the editing done for this, but in that case it's not a problem. These things happen, and you just have to do what's necessary, I'm afraid, and then edit that afterwards. So what I'm going to do is just completely select that, hide unselected, so we're just purely working on the cape now without anything else in the scene. That's all fine. So I'm just going to grab that, and we're going to go back to the tools and just slide, whoops, don't want that one, just undo and slide that across like so. And just push that back. But what we'll do, we'll soften it all out afterwards. You know, I'm not overly concerned at the time being for that. So I'm just going to pull it all around just a tiny bit. You know, not forgetting that this is now, we're customizing this now to our own needs. You know, just using a bit of artistic license, you know. So that's all good. So I'm just going to delete that one, and also delete that one as well. Oops, wrong one. That one. Okay, and we're just going to select that. In fact, we'll grab that one instead, and we'll delete that one. So that's all okay so far, and we'll slowly get this mesh back into play as we need it. Okay, so we'll get rid of that, and so forth. So as you can see, you know, we've lost a little bit of shape, but what we can do is just add that all back. You know, it's all okay. So I'm trying to keep the mesh as clean as possible, because I'm trying to give you an example of how, you know, meshes do need to be clean for certain aspects of you know, visual effects and stuff. So, and what I will do is just actually merge that one over instead, and then that one we can put across to here, and we'll add an extra edge loop without me getting too tongue-tied. We'll just slide that across, just sort of there for now. Okay, and we'll grab this sucker and just move that across as well. So we're just going to bring everything to a point where it's sensible enough for us to add extra geometry, okay, and get this nice sort of rounded shape back as well. Okay, so that's all good. So I'm just going to pop in a loop here for now, and once that's all joined up with these two, so what we'll do is we'll grab the verts, and let's just do all of these while we're at it, and all the way down. So as always, there's always a little bit of manual sort of labour stuff to do. It's just one of those things, I'm afraid. You have to expect to do these things. It's the whole point of being a modeller. You know, if it's your chosen sort of path in 3D. So just going to snap that up there. Same with that one. Same with that one. And we'll just get everything merged together. And I'm just going to show the border edges. So those ones need merging. Okay, like so. That's all good. And just going to push things around just a little bit, just to keep them all good. So we need to add edge loops there, and start to shape all that up. And another one here, another one here. Okay, so it's all fitting quite nicely. We'll add another one in there. So I want to, you know, people might be thinking, oh my god, more geometry, but you know, when you look at that marvelous designer cape that we've got in, you know, this is like not even a third of that, I don't think. So it's a no-brainer really, for me anyway. So, and this is going to be a nice clean mesh, and it's going to be optimized. So just going to snap that. And what have we got here? Okay, so let's start from this side and start to add, or start to snap these guys in. Okay, so we need another 3 loops, which is fine. And we'll just move those over here. So it's kind of like, you know, there's a lot of problem solving as well as a modeler. You have to sort of figure out loops and how many edges and, you know, things like that, keeping it quads, which direction everything's going to go, and all that kind of stuff that, you know, animators and riggers and stuff all kind of worry about. Is the model going to be any good when we get it? In some cases in rigging you do have to you know, adhere to a few things that riggers will require, which is, you know, which is a normal kind of thing anyway. You know, they'll want loops a certain way for one model and loops one way for another model. So, and there we go. So those are all fitting quite nicely. So let's just get those snapped, and then we'll merge those together. Whoops. Okay, there we go. So what we're going to do now is shape all this up. Just going to smooth a few things out, relax a few things. Okay, so we need to grab these like so. Shift these across. And what I'm going to do now is actually get that relax tool. So back into object mode, mesh tools, sculpting tools, go to relax, and we'll just start to just gently sort of ease that mesh back in. Like so. And that's going to work really well, I think. let's see if we can get the smooth one. The relaxed one is a little bit, there we go, that's better. Okay. Whoops. Let's just bring that back a bit. So with that done, we'll start to do a little bit of manual shaping. And just hit B on the keyboard. Just start to push things around a little bit. Make it look a lot nicer. And we'll just push that across. There we go. Like so. Just drop that fall off back a bit, just so we can get a handle on this stuff here without dragging the ones over there sort of behind us and taking that shape out. There we go. So the other thing, of course, with this, let's just go back to the relax or smooth. Let's just relax this a little bit more. So that's looking more like a heavier sort of look on the cape. I'm just going to edit that a bit, and then just in here as well. So it's all looking good. So I got sidetracked there. The other thing that I was going to mention was that the thing with something like this kind of object, you know, it's looking a bit thin. So you essentially want to put sort of like an edging or something around it. So, you know, sort of like you could make it, you know, select the whole lot and just make it thicker, which would look kind of cool. Or what you can do is just grab these edges and just extrude them down and round and back in again. You notice here as well, you know, this side is black, this side it isn't. That's purely down to two-sided lighting. That's all that is. So if I just do that and do that, that's what our cape has started to look like. So what I want to do is just do a little bit more shaping around here as well. And just do that. And then what I'll do, just shape that just so we get a little bit of a nicer feel to the mesh. That's better. And then that is pretty much there. It's not symmetrical, not by any means. It's not the idea, because it wouldn't be like that in real life anyway. It would no way be that symmetrical. So I think what we've got here is it's kind of nice. So the other thing I'm going to do is start to just add a little bit more geometry in a few of these places, like so. And that pretty much and almost concludes that part of the model. So I think what we'll do is if we select the edge like so, and then what we can do is if we can find the manipulator, there it is start to give it just a little bit of thickness like so. Actually, in fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the whole thing, just to be facetious, really. But we'll do it very, very carefully. Let's undo that. Okay, and just select all the faces again. Okay, like so. Just make sure we've got everything. So I'm going to add just some tiny thickness on this. Okay, so we just nip over to here, just where our manipulator is, and just really make it very thin, like so. And that will give us a nice, you know, thickness to that cape. And then what we can do is start to add some loops just on those edges, just to keep it all looking good. So you can see how thin that is. You can do it thicker if you want, if you require something a bit sort of heavier, bulkier. Okay, I'm just going to put a loop through there, and one just through here as well. And of course we'll do one around here. There we go. And that's the cape pretty much taken care of. Now the only thing left to do really for the cape, let's just delete the history and do show all, and then we'll hide our MD cloth, and all we need to do now is just start to grab these and just start to just give it a bit of an edit, just so it all sits properly. Okay, like so. Same again. And just raise that up and a little bit back. So it's just one of those things that you have to tinker with. Let's just have a look at this as well. So it's all starting to come into play. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so we're coming up for around half an hour, I think. So we've done very well out of that actual part of everything. So what I think we'll do, just to round off this particular chapter, is get some UVs on this guy. So I'm going to hide unselected, okay, like so. And I'm going to create some UVs. We'll do a planar set. Let's have a look. So we're going to do that down the Z-axis, okay, like so, and just alternate that rotation just a slight bit, okay, like so. And then what I'm going to do is select the edge in there, if I can find it. There it is. Okay, and we're going to go to our layout. So I'm going to go to the UV layout, just going to close all this stuff off. It's all in the way. So I'm going to do that, and what I'm going to do is go cut UV edges, like so. Grab this guy, 2 shell. Hopefully we should have 2 shells now. There we go. Okay, one will be reversed, which will be that one, of course. We'll flip that across. There we go, that's all done. And I think what we'll need to do now is relax this guy. So I'm going to use this, so you can see how everything is going to be. So this is going to enable you to do a relatively nice paint job with the UV UDIM saved out as well. So just trying to keep it all relatively nice, so that's good. And we'll do the same with this guy, so to shell, and again just going to relax everything. Yeah, you can make the brush as big as you want, and obviously the bigger it is, the quicker it will get that job done, and hopefully everything is good. Okay, like so. And we'll place, I think what we'll do, we'll place both of these in the same tile, because one is just going to be the inside of the cape, and the other one will be the exterior, which will be the main one that we want to see. But I think what we'll do for this exercise, we will just keep everything in the one area for that one. So just going to go show last hidden, or show all rather. Let's get rid of that. So just want to show you while we're here, these are the UVs that were generated by Marvelous Designer. As you can see, the scale is absolutely huge, but the fact is you've got a set there, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let's go to F. There we go. So what we want to do is grab these just going to move them down and out of the way for a moment while we select everything else. Okay, and then what we can do is go and pop those into their own UDIM. In fact, let's be generous, we've done everything else with a separate UDIM, so I think this will suffice in this case as well. We'll just move that across, and we'll just scale those down just a tiny bit. There we go, and that's all done. So let's get rid of that, and it's gone a very dark colour, so I can only assume the normals were flipped, and in this case what we'll do is flip these back UV wise. Don't do it in face mode, because if you do that, what will happen is it's all very well selecting as a face, but just make sure you convert the selection to UV, because if you do it in face mode, what will happen is on occasion Maya will flip out and literally separate every single part of this shell, and you'll have about 1,000 pieces of UV tiles, shells to stitch back together. So make sure you flip any of your objects in UV mode, not face mode. It's really not good. So I'm just going to emphasize that one. Just put the fear of God into you. Yeah, it's a bit of a shocker, that one. I learnt that one the hard way a very, very long time ago. And fortunately, my modelling supervisor at the time was very understanding, and you know, said to me, you know, that it's one of those things you do have to be aware of. So, right, what we need to do here is just relax this a little bit, sort of get rid of this these other half of the other shell that's sticking through. So it's just one of those things with double-sided meshes, just making sure that everything is looking good. One particular cape that we've done in a recent production was really fantastic and so intricate. It was just incredible. Really impressive work by the guys in the modelling department who did that. I'd love to give them a credit right now, but I'm not going to, because I can't. But they did a wonderful job. And I'll tell you what, it looks impressive in motion and stuff. So there we go. So that to me is done. So that really just takes us on now to the final sort of part of this tutorial. Probably going to go over one or two more chapters really, and that's getting the paintwork on and some form of detail on Batman's sort of boiler suit-y skin tight thing that he wears all the time, the work suit. So that's all really now we need to do. So with that said, I'll leave you here, and next episode we'll be jumping back into ZBrush and looking at some paint. So I'll see you then. Cheers for now. Okay, so welcome back. So we're sort of into the final sort of couple of chapters now, just to get the poly painting done for our character. As you can see, we've got the body, the glove, the boots, the bat mask is in there as well for reference for the colour of the boots and the gloves and the cape. I've also brought in the face just for good measure, and we've got the new updated belt brought in, and also the rather lovely cape that David did in Marvellous Designer. So before we do crack on with any of those bits, what I thought we'd do is get on with the body itself. So I've added a couple more subdivisions already just to get us started. So as you can see, it's a lot sort of smoother. So the intention is to first of all add colour to this. So I'm just going to switch the colour, and we're going to choose a grey colour with the RGB intensity at 100, and we're just going to hit fill object. So it's going to kind of look, actually let's make it a little bit lighter. So it's going to kind of look like we just got a basic shader on it for the time being. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a darker colour, or sort of almost heading towards black, and what we're going to do is start to sort of shade in the more of the cavity type areas on the suit, just to sort of bring those out a little bit. You know, you can do this, you don't have to do this, but afterwards we'll be doing the texture as well for the actual material. So we'll go from there with regards to that. But first of all, I just want to add, you know, some very sort of light, sort of black shading in between all of these areas, just to, it's not quite a fake ambient occlusion, but I thought it would be more like you know, where the suit's been worn a fair bit, and you know, there's sort of grime stuck in between, you know, the muscly areas and stuff like that. So yeah, just to make it pop a little bit more. So we'll just go around and do this. You can choose, you know, different patterns and stuff like that if you want. I'm just going to use the, well, with an alpha or without an alpha, it's entirely up to you. For the time being, for this, I'm going to actually just choose no alpha and just colour this in. So I'm just going to spread that out a little bit more. There we go. So around the belt area as well. Let's just do all this under here. And around the back. So I've got the symmetry on for this, which is X on the keyboard. So I'm just going to bring all this out as well. Once we get the material sort of displacement on, everything will make sense, because we'll get that kind of look sort of going on it. Kind of like what they did for Batman, Superman. You know, that suit is completely, it's almost worn out when you look at the still images of it. It's a good idea. That's quite interesting. Okay, not what we're going to see is butt or anything because the cape's in the way, but same with the backs of the legs, but at least we'll know it's all there. This is actually a technique they used to use on actual physical models. They'd go around and paint all the areas that were recessed with a black paint, and then they'd put the actual colour in over the top of the model, and it would just make things like panels and stuff stick out, especially on spacecraft models. I know for a fact they used to do it on the original Star Wars films. So it's a very good technique. So this is kind of similar. Obviously we're not doing paneling or anything like that, but there we go. So it just makes that sort of stand out just a little bit more. Might be a tiny bit of overkill in places, so what we're going to do is just brighten those up. Just pop those in there. There we go. And just sort of adjust the back of the arms as well. So if we just go down to our subtools, I'm just going to bring up the glove just so we can see that. Okay. And I'll just add just a slightly darker colour just on the suit. I'm not too worried about the colour of the glove at the moment, because obviously that's taking on, it's one of those little annoyances in ZBrush where it takes on the colour that you're actually painting when you don't necessarily want it to. If you want to sample a colour, just simply hold the C key down and you should be able to just sample a lighter colour if need be, or whatever colour you want, and just add it. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom out. Okay, that's good. Just double check everything. So if we darken this up a bit more again, just going to turn that glove off, don't need that. And just going to add a bit more sort of grime to this part, and we'll add it to the back as well, just a little bit more, even though a lot of this, like I say, we won't see it, but we'll know it's there. There we go. Okay, so that's all good, I think, for now. So what we're going to do, I'm not going to do the logo on the chest just yet, because what I'd like to do is sort of sculpt it in a little bit first, and then we'll go over the top of it afterwards. So we'll leave that there for now. I'm just going to cool the belt up. So we'll look. So no, it's not looking too bad. So just add a little bit more under here as well. So as you can see, the process, excuse me, the process is relatively sort of pain-free for this part anyway. The belt will do a sort of a darker goldy colour just to offset everything. There we go. And we'll just darken that off as well. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. Just to take the size of that brush down and just paint that in like so, and I'll just do the inside. So as you can see, that's popped quite nicely. It just sort of brings everything out. It's almost like a fake ambient occlusion effect, but it will work. We might need to tweak it a little bit, but it will work for definite once we get all the other sort of patterns and stuff going on. So I'm just going to clean that up a little bit there, just a tiny bit. There we go. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll start to add some deformation. Okay, so it's just going to be basic sort of stuff all over the suit. So what we'll do, we'll get ourselves a spray stroke, and we'll just use something standard for the time being. Let's just have a look. I mean, obviously you can go around and choose whatever pattern that you wish to use. Just going to Control D now, subdivide this up 2 more times, and we'll just check what we've got going on here. So it's not too bad. I think 1 more subdivision on that, and then we'll just drop the intensity That's about 6, and start to see what we get. Let's have a look. So it's quite a mottled sort of pattern. Yeah, that's working for me. You may choose to do something completely different. Let's just undo that. And a bit more. Okay. So there's plenty going on in there, all the memory and stuff. Okay, so let's have a look. So that's not too bad. Now I'm just going to increase the intensity. Let's just do one more check on that. That's pretty good. And just going to try one more thing. Could do it that way. There's all sorts of ways you could actually apply this, but I think we'll go with the spray, because I think it's got sort of a more of a workhorse kind of look to the suit afterwards. So let's just go over this, and of course we'll add things like creases and stuff as well. So we'll just go over this. As I said, you know, you can do whatever pattern you like. You can do a really kind of fine sort of, you know, really kind of different sort of stuff to this. You don't have to use what I'm using, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm using something that's already built in for us. There we go. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the arms, even though again the gloves will be there, we won't really see a lot. Okay, just to finish the whole sort of suit off that way. And so on. There we go. I won't do too much to the chest because we still want to put that logo on there. And we'll still add it to the area where the head will be, just to make sure we got it covered. And what we'll do as well, we'll add some clothing creases to this as well, just so it looks like it has been stitched, you know, together. There we go. Right, so that's looking good. I think I think that's looking okay. And we'll just do around here. Just double check under the arms. Just make sure we get in there. There we go. And in here as well. Oops, just let that save, the old auto save. There we go. So as you can see, it's not taking us long to get this far with this, so that's all pretty cool. And just adjust this a bit more, just add a bit more sort of detail to these areas. By all means, do use your layers and stuff, but do be aware they can be a little bit memory intensive, so you may have to just use 1 or 2 layers at a time. I'm not using them for the sake of this tutorial, but do use the layers for your detail adjustments and things like that. You know, just treat them like it would in Photoshop, but for the sake of this tutorial I'm not using them. There we go, so that's good. Okay. And we'll just bring that round. Okay. Just bring these out a little bit more. Okay, cool. Okay, so we'll leave that there for the moment. So what we're going to do now is just choose a standard sort of brush and just get some lazy mouse. Lazy smooth. Let's just have a quick look. That's too much. Let's just increase that. Just want to see what we're going to get. If we add some Z-add, so we're going to add some creases now. So let's have a look, see what we can do these. Let's see if we can add some between the elbows and stuff. So it's probably a little bit too harsh. Okay, so let's just drop that down just a little bit. Just around these areas as well. And just drop the size of the brush just to alternate the size of the crease. Okay, like so. So it's just giving us a rough sort of, well, I wouldn't say rough, but it's probably the wrong word to use, but an idea of that there's something on the surface, you know that this is covering his body. So let's turn off X because I don't want to do the symmetry on everything. So we'll add few creases and stuff around here. Let's just undo that one, and we'll just bring that one across. Because this is skin tight, I don't want to sort of overdo stuff, but at the same time, you know, you want to give an impression of something going on in there. And then we'll just add some small ones. Just going around. Like so. And we'll just add a couple on the shoulders. And just turn that off. Let's just put one across there as well. And of course, just a couple in here. There we go. Just add a couple on the back, even though we won't see these ones as much. Also, if you decide to do posing for this, do think about which direction the creases are going. I mean, I'm just doing these as a sort of a generic sort of thing just for the tutorial, but if you're going to use this, if you're going to do this rather on the character in a pose, do make sure that the creases are going in the sort of the correct direction. If you look at the way your arms bend and stuff in the mirror, you'll see what I mean. So let's just add a couple of creases around here. Actually, let's undo those, they're not very good. Okay, and we'll just add a couple. Just across there and across here. And we'll add a kind of couple of creases here as well in the groin area. So that will finish that off. There we go. So it's not looking too bad. And I think we just add a couple just coming off of the quads and on here as well. Let's undo those. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And then let's just add a couple just to the lower knees. And same with this one. And here as well. Okay. There we go. Just put those in there, and also we'll just do a couple across the back. And there we go. So it's not taking long at all. So it kind of works out really well. So what I think we need to do now is I'm going to actually mask out a bat logo. Okay, so if we just go back, get ourselves a fairly hard brush, put on our X symmetry, and we're going to mask out a logo for ourselves. Let's just get rid of that. In fact, let's just bigger brush, get rid of that completely, and do another one. Let's just bring it about there, and just forward. Okay, so let's take that brush size right down, and we'll add ourselves and let's just tweak this a little bit. Obviously you can do whatever design you want. You can bring in an alpha and do it as well. I'm just doing this freehand. We'll just bring that across, and then something like that. better. And then what we'll do, if we go down to masking, sharpen the mask, there we go. Then we'll inverse that, okay, like so. And then what I'm going to do is use our deformation. Going to inflate by about 0.2 if it's going to let us do that, which it has. In fact, let's do it again. So let's do 0.5. There we go. So I'm just going to hide the mask for one moment. Okay, so what I think we can add to that just a little bit more. Let's go to inflate, let's do 1. There we go, that's better. Okay, then we can go back to our RGB. Go to our color palette, go all the way down, make it darker. And can we fill the objects? Let's have a look. There we go. And that's done. Okay. And if you want, you can, just tidy up the edges and all that sort of stuff as well. And might want to make it a little bit sharper. Actually, we could do that. Let's do that before we do any more. So we'll go and find a much sharper brush. There we go, that one there. And we can just sharpen these edges just a tiny bit more, like so. So I'm just removing some more of the mask, and then we'll do the same this end. Or in fact, we could just do that. There we go. And I think we can sharpen these just a little bit more. Just around here. There we go, that's better. And we'll just sharpen that. And just tidy those edges up. There we go, that's better. So I'm just going to zoom out, that's much nicer. And we'll go down to deformation once again. Go to inflate, let's do 1.5. There we go. And we'll hide our mask. Oops, wrong way. So let's hide the mask. There we go, that's much better. I mean, if you wanted as well, just as an idea, you could shrink the mask. Or actually, you can grow it. Let's grow the mask. And sharpen it. What you could do, if you could do that, and then come in right on that edge, then invert that, you could probably give it a sort of a border. But I won't do that at the moment. So it'll probably take up a little bit more time in order to get what we want. But for the time being, we'll leave that there. There we go. And then all we have to do, once again, is just fill that object, clear our mask, and there we go. and that's all done. So we'll leave that there for now, and we'll come back and we'll carry on. So we've only got sort of the gloves and the boot and the belt to do, and then the cape. So it's all looking good, and we'll be right back. So cheers for now. Okay, so welcome back. The last chapter we covered the bodysuit, adding the sort of surface details and some colour as well, and also the bat logo on the chest. This one we're going to just crack on and get on with the gloves and also the boot. First of all, what I'd like to do is actually open up the colour palette, and we'll dock that over here on the right, and just by holding down the C key, what we're able to do is sample the colour. So if I just hover my cursor, you can see there up in the right hand corner of the screen, you can see the colour changing interactively as I move the cursor over the body. So what we want to do is we're going to use this technique to open up the bat mask, okay, on its own layer, and just hover with the C key and just get ourselves that kind of blue from the mask. So we'll use that colour that I've got there, okay, and then what we're going to do, we're going to fill these objects. So let's just make sure that we're on the glove. Let's just highlight the glove layer, okay, and we're going to fill that hopefully 100% if it works. And we need to switch the colour, that would work, and then fill that object, and there we go, that's done. So that's the blue done, and it's done the glove and the boot at the same time, so that's good. Okay, so what we want to do now is we're going to go around and we're going to add a sort of a texture to this as well. So what I've done, I've already chosen beforehand the Alpha 22 and the spray stroke as well. So I'm just going to turn off RGB because we don't need that at the moment, and we're going to crank up the Z intensity to, I think, about 10, 11 is fine. There we go, and make sure we're on Z sub, and then all I'm going to do is just turn off X because we don't need that on, we're not working in symmetry, and I'm just going to go around and just add this surface to our glove, okay, like so. And if we go to polyframe, we're able to see the UVs on that. I just wanted to make sure where everything was, and that's all fine. So on the leather, we're just going to be doing this, okay. In fact, what I'm going to do is hide the body so we can navigate around the glove itself. Okay, so it's very, very simple, as you can see. Obviously you can take a bit more time on it if you wish. So I'm going to just try and keep it all the same throughout, and I'm just going to start to add to these areas as well. We're going to do exactly the same on the boot, even though we've already added that kind of mesh kind of look to the boot itself. I just want to add this to the sort of the leather as well, and as you can see, it just flies over it really easily, you know. There we go. And of course you can add sort of different sort of styles of leather if you choose to. You know, you could also do it sort of worn as well. So it's all looking pretty good. There we go. So just do these fingers. There we go. So already it's taking shape. Even with the creases and stuff, it's all looking quite convincing. There we go. So we'll just carefully do between and around the gauntlet spikes. There we go. And that's already started to make a difference as to how the glove looks. I think that's really made it pop in that respect. Let's just zoom out a little bit more. There we go. Not overly concerned about the way that is on there. I think it sort of adds to it. It's slightly stretched, but it's not too bad. We can always update the UVs and bring that back in for this afterwards. We can check it out. So I'm just going to take the side of the brush down and just go around. There we go. So going pretty fast, nothing too drastic, you know, nothing too taxing for this. There we go, and that's done pretty much. So that already stands out, and we've not really done a great deal to that. So that's already working, which is great. Okay. Let's just add a little bit more. The other thing as well, worth bearing in mind, is that leather does vary over the course of its surface. No one piece is the same. If you get the chance to find some reference, some good reference, you'll notice that things like leather jackets and stuff like that, the surface is generally not the same. So it's all worth sort of looking at and yeah, using as a template, if you will, for things that require leather. That's the thing that makes it more convincing, is because it does have all this variation across the surface of it. So it's, you know, if you can do that and make it look better, great, go for it. Okay, so I'm going to move down to the boot. We're going to do exactly the same thing. Okay, so let's just switch to the boot layer. Okay, and we're going to fill that object as well, like so. And then we're just going to go in and add our detail. So I'll just turn off the glove. I'll just go to there. That's more like it. Just clicking on the object will center it to a local space. So we're going to start adding this to it as well. And if you don't want anything to sort of spill over onto other areas, you can always mask that off. In fact, I may do that. So we can just mask all of this off around here. Like so. Whoops, wrong one. Let's just undo that. Control. There we go. So and around here, and what I'm going to do is just go as close as I can to the top of the rubber there. So sorry for the silence, it's just while I do this. I don't really think you need an explanation for this particular part. All I'm doing is holding down the control key to invoke the mask and then just spraying it on like so. And that's just going to enable us to just have a little bit more control and not have any sort of spill of the surface texture that I'm applying to the model. Okay, like so. There we go. So okay, so we can now get on with this bit again. So just gonna go in and put this surface on. There we go. And then what we will do, just as we did with the mask or the cowl, whatever you want to call it, we'll add some darker sort of areas as well, just to you know, inside the cavities of this, just to sort of break everything up. And we'll do the same with all of the mesh and stuff as well. So let's just go around here and around this side. There we go. And just on here as well. What I will do very shortly is put some sort of scuff marks in the front of the boot. So I'm going to do that as well on the gloves, because obviously he's been using them for defending himself and all that kind of thing that Batman gets up to, jumping around rooftops and all sorts. So you're going to get a bit of wear and tear, so we'll add a little bit of that very shortly as well. So I'm just going to zoom out. And on the shader, I'm just going to change the shader a bit more, just give us a bit more sort of specular. And let's just adjust that material. This is only so I can sort of see it a bit more. So the ambient is 8. So the diffuse should be 0.8 actually on that. Okay, let's take the ambient out. Okay, let's put that back then. Let's give it a little bit more ambient, just so we can see things. That's better. And then we can just start to in fact, let's just change it back over. There we go. So just brighten that, the ambient, just take those shadows out a bit, just so we can see a bit more with what we're doing. That's the thing with the ambient light. Ambient does reduce shadows. For those of you who are not familiar with any form of rendering or material sort of aspects, so it's just something there. The correct diffuse for any shader material is 0.8. That's real world sort of lighting, so it's always at 0.8 or something like that. For the most part. Obviously there's always going to be an exception to that, but for the most part with shaders and stuff, always keep the diffuse at 0.8. But as for ambient, if you want to turn up ambient light, you'll reduce the shadows and get a sort of more of a flatter and more washed out kind of look. So just to warn you there, let me just show you by that. So here's our ambient, we're on 23. So if I lower it down to 3, you can see in between all the creasing and stuff how all the sort of shadows are darker. It almost gives you, kind of how ambient occlusion works. So if I drop it completely and then take it back up, you can see it becomes washed out, so lacking in sort of any form of self shadow. Okay, so it's just one of those things to remember. So we're nearly done with the boot as well, with this aspect of it anyway. And we'll just take this texture around like so. That's all good. There we go. So pretty painless, and we won't worry about that zip area. Leave it as is. So what we'll do now is just add a bit more to the top here, like so. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is just add a bit of sort of scuffing. So we'll just change the alpha. So I think we'll use alpha 58, and we'll come back to a more of a freehand so just beat these up a little bit and just do a little bit across the top. So let's take up the intensity just a little bit more. Just as if the leather has worn away just a little bit. And of course we'll want some on the top here. Like so. And we'll put some across the front. And some around these sides, just to give it that kind of worn away feel. And just a tiny bit onto the back, just where this crease is, and just make it a little bit bigger, just so we've got a few little imperfections and stuff. So it looks like it's had a bit of action. There we go. I'll have to get his kiwi boot polish on these to give that leather a bit of love. Okay, there we go. I think we'll call it a day with that bit. Okay, so just going to deselect that mask, so that's all good. Okay, and then we'll go back to our glove and we'll do the same thing, and just turn the boot off. Whoops, don't want everything just yet. So if we go back to the glove, and what we're going to do, whoops, is just do a little bit of damage on the front here as well. Again, I'm just using standard ZBrush alphas. By all means, bring your own in, but I do like what is supplied with the software, because for the most part you can use it, or use the alphas for quite a lot of things, and also you can mix up dual brushes and stuff like that as well, but we won't be covering that today. We'll cover that in another lesson somewhere down the line. We do have a few other tutorials lined up for you, and we're trying to get those done as quickly as possible, so all is good, because Simply is going to get a revamp at some point as we go on to bigger and better things, so stay tuned. Okay, so let's just give these knuckles on the fingers a little bit of damage as well. Where someone's had a high five in the face. Alright, so let's just beat that up a little bit more. That's good. Okay, so that's all good, and I don't think we need to do much else with that. So we'll just keep that as battered as we can. Okay, there we go. And just wear it out just a little bit more in a few places on the surface. Okay, like so, and then I think a little bit more inside the palms. From climbing around and landing and all that sort of thing. So let's just rough this up. See what we can do. We can use the spray just to give us a bit more of a rough look. And again, you know, do take your time with this. So I'm just roughing up the palms and everything on here. Let's just do that there as well, towards the wrist. That's better. And what we can do in some cases is, you know, when leather wears out, it loses the colour as well. So we can add some more of a sort of a natural or neutral colour, as leather would be. So we'll just add that in there like that. Okay, so I think that's going to suffice for this particular bit. And just wear it out a little bit there. And we'll just come around the front. Just want to add a little bit more to these knuckles. And on the front there as well, so there'll be a wear and tear fighting crime. There we go. Okay, and we'll leave that one there. And just do a little bit of grazing work just on the creasing, and just the odds and sods of scarring as well. Just put that around here, and that works quite well. Okay, so all ready for the next bit. So what I'm going to do is darken up this colour. Okay, so let's make that a lot darker, and we're going to go down to masking. Okay, and then mask by cavity, like so. Okay, so you can see where it's gone darker, and what I'm going to do is hide the mask. like so. Come back up to here, and then what we're going to do is go in and choose no alpha and go in with the freehand, turn off Z sub and put back on RGB, and we'll turn down the RGB intensity, and hopefully we should be able to undo that first, and we'll inverse that once again, and we'll fill the object instead, I think. So we put it to 10% and then fill object a bit at a time. So as you can see, starting to get sort of more darker areas on the glove. There we go, you can start to see that pop now on those creases. So I'm just going to increase the intensity, we'll do one big jump on that. There you go, so that's come out darker. There we go, okay. And then what we're going to do is inverse the mask again. I'm going to hide the mask, and I'm just going to choose a more sort of natural sort of colour, okay, like so, and then hopefully whoops, we need to inverse that, turn the mask off, and give us a little bit more sort of wear and tear. Let's have a look here. Actually, let's inverse that again. So we'll inverse the mask. View mask. There we go. So we'll just keep going round. Whoops, too much. Okay. Just bring it over. Okay, so a bit of wear and tear there, don't want them too perfect. Like so, and I'm just going to scale that up a little bit, and we're going to select this colour. And I'm just going to brighten it up a bit as well. Okay. And just sort of brighten it under here as well. And what we'll do is we'll just darken it just a bit more. And we'll do what we did in the last chapter and just sort of add just a little bit of our own sort of ambient occlusion in these areas. Like so. Just to pick it out just a little bit more. Not that we need to per se, but just on a sort of style point of view. I'm just going to touch that one and just make it a bit darker. There we go. And just bring that round like so. That's okay. So you can see that's made that stand out a bit better now. And we'll do the same on here. There we go. And just around here as well. And of course, if you want to, do feel free to paint specular maps and all that kind of thing with this, which is one of the good things with ZBrush as well. You know, you can paint specular maps and stuff. So you want to fill the whole glove black, and then areas that you want to have sort of shiny, more shiny than others. You know, you'd add a dash of sort of white paint here and there, then export that whole map out as a specular map. So it's, you know, there's lots of little things you can do. I'm just going to go around and do these little creases and stuff like so. And we'll do this on the underside of the glove. There we go. So it's looking pretty good. So where those spikes are, I think what we'll do, we'll add a bit more sort of darker area. Like so, just to get that crease to stand out as well. And we'll just pull that around there. There we go. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of that splodge that's going on right there. Don't like that at all. So we're just going to cover that over. There we go. And what we can do is move on to the boot. So that's looking okay. So let's go and find our subtool. Back on the wrong way. No, there we go. So we can switch the boot back on. Highlight the boot. Let's turn off the glove. And hit F, there we go. So again, we can do the same thing. So if we go down to masking, so we can go mask by cavity. So that's that done. And we can inverse that. There we go. So I'm just going to turn the mask off, or it's viewing off, and then use this to go a bit darker, and then we're going to fill this object. Okay, like so. Okay. And then let's just go a bit more. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is go around and just manually sort of paint in darker areas once again. Let's get rid of the mask now, don't need that. And then we can just go around and paint all this in like so. I think it helps to do this, especially on stuff like this, even though it's like fake shadowing, but I think it's worth just adding that sort of grime effect to these sort of areas, which is what you would get. You know, you get dirt increases and all that sort of stuff. So there we go. So that's starting to make that look a lot better. And we'll just dirty the whole side up, I think, just here. and all the way around here as well. There we go. Yeah, we'll do the backs. There we go. So pretty straightforward. Again, nothing too taxing, and it makes it all pop and look a lot better. Like so. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just go around just over this webbing just a bit more, and down here as well. Not going to overdo it. I did actually think about doing these black, but I think we'll just keep it all the one colour for now. But you can choose to have a play around, see if you can do anything with these extra pieces. So just darkening these up ever so slightly. And there we go. So I'm just going to lower the darkness now, or lower the value. And just go around and give the sole a bit more of a darker look, just to separate it a little bit more from the actual upper synthetic and sort of leathery sort of look. Okay, so that's looking okay. There we go. So just to offset that, give it a bit of contrast as well actually, just by doing this around the rubber bit of the sole. This time round I'm not too worried about the bleed on that, on the actual colour. There we go, so that's working quite nicely. There we go. Okay, so now we want to get a more of a sort of a neutral colour again. So I'm just trying to have a look at that, and then let's just come down here, mask by cavity again. And what we can do is just have a look. And we'll inverse that. Like so. And just going around. And just adding it ever so slightly, not too much. I mean, you may want to do more. So those sort of areas like that. Okay, there we go.
Just do a little bit more, just on here, just on the outside of that. There we go, that's done. So if we go to the material modifier, take the ambient down, that's way better, much better. And there you go. So let's go up to our subtool. So we're going to call it a day now. So if we go up to our subtool and we show our glove and the bodysuit. So if we just hit F, just so we can see everything. There we go. So it's all starting to come together. Let's just display the face and the mask. So that's going to look pretty cool once that's done. So we've got two more things to do. So that's going to leave us with the cape. As you can see, it's just taken on the colour, the last colour. But what we'll do, actually we'll do that now while I'm here. And we'll just grab that and we'll switch that colour. And we'll just fill that object with that white 100% for the moment, just so we know what we've got to do. And also the belt, which we will actually, I'll fill that in with a temporary yellow. Okay, in fact let's make it a bit more orangey, a bit more sort of sensible sort of colour. So we'll fill that object as well, and there we go. So we're ready to pretty much do those. In fact, I'm going to choose this blue once again, just make it a little bit darker, and fill the cape with that as well. So you can see that's all coming along nicely now. So all we need to do is just a similar method as to like what we've been doing with the boots and the glove, and then we're ready to do the same thing to the cape, and then we'll add some sort of metallic sort of look and everything to the belt as well. So we're going to leave that there, and we shall see you in the next chapter. So cheers for now. Okay, so welcome back. In the last chapter we covered the gloves and the boots, and we added all the sort of extra little bits of detailing on those as well. We're going to cover the cape and also the belt in this chapter. So as we've already covered, we've filled these two objects with their with the colours that we've chosen basically, and all we're going to do now is just go over the cape, give it a bit of texture as well. I've chosen the spray stroke and alpha 58 to allow us to add a sort of a skin, sort of almost like a membrane sort of look to the actual cape itself. I'm not too worried about this intersection here because I know that the cape actually fits over in the version in Maya, and this is just a temporary sort of cowl just to sort of see how everything is sort of looking with the character. So I'm not worried about that. So let's just carry on as we were. So we're just going to start to spray in this sort of membrane kind of look, and all I'm going to do is just go around. It's going to be quite a short chapter because it's not going to take us too long to do this particular piece, and the same with the belt as well. So what I'm going to do is just go around, and let's just hit X as well. So there we go, you can see that is coming together quite nicely. So we'll just go around and do this all the way across. And what we'll be doing in the following chapter after this will be to extract all the maps that we're going to require, which we'll then sort of put together in Photoshop, make sure everything's flipped the right way, because as some of you may have noticed, we've just covered one glove, so that glove will have its own UV shell, so we'll need to flip that over and do the same for the map as well over in Maya, which we'll do, and then we're going to hand off the rendering side of it to David again. He's going to show you how to render this guy out in Arnold over in Maya 2017. Because there's been a few changes in Arnold for that, so we're going to cover that in that section, and to sort of finish off the whole tutorial. So once I'm done with the texturing and putting the UVs and stuff back together, David is going to take over and finish off the tutorial that way. So should have a nice rounding off to that. So we're nearly there with this. So as you can see, it's got kind of a membrane effect going on. My processor whining away here today. So let's there's a lot of subdivisions in the cape itself for this particular piece. I think we're running like, yeah, sort of like 22 million polys in this, so it's quite a lot, but it's just to get this detail in there, and then we can extract that as a normal map, and we're good. There we go. Okay. Let's just make sure this is all covered as well, just up here. Just going to take the brush size down just a little bit more, just to get some smaller sort of look going on as well. There we go. And just coming to the end of this. So as you can see, this part hasn't taken long at all, and once we're done with this bit, we'll go around to the front and do the belt. So okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to need to call up the color palette, okay, like so, and then what we're going to do is go down to masking, and once again mask by cavity as we have been, and hopefully that should work for us. There we go. So there's quite a lot in there, so I'm going to inverse this, okay, and then hide the mask like so. I'm going to go to our color palette. We're going to sample holding down the C key. As you can see, it'll pick up wherever the cursor goes. So I'm just going to sample that blue and then just make it just a smidge darker. Going to go to RGB, turn off the Z sub because we don't want any deformation going on, and I'm going to drop the RGB intensity down to, let's say, okay, 18% is good, and we're going to fill the object. Okay, so you can see there, I'm just doing it bit by bit. You can see there that the pattern in those cavities is now being filled out. Okay, so then what we'll do is if we zoom out, we can now see that sort of look in that material is looking a lot better. So that's pretty cool. And last but not least, what I'd like to do is just sort of add a little bit of dirt to the base of the cape, you know, because we've done that sort of thing with the boots. So I'm just going to add a little bit to the base, of this cape. We'll just get a nice sort of spray sort of stroke going on, and we'll choose a different alpha. Just let that catch up. There we go. Let's use this one. So we're just going to darken that up, I think, a bit more. And let's just increase the intensity, like so. And I'm just going to make that a bit darker as well. There we go. So it's not overkill, but it's just something that's there. And we've got the symmetry on, so we're going to turn that off so we don't get everything looking the same. And let's turn off that spray stroke. That's better. And just doing these edges. So you can see where the dirt's going into the cavities there. And what we can do as well is actually export cavity maps and stuff as well when we come to do all the maps, so you can add that sort of increase in sort of, you know, almost like an ambient occlusion type effect into the map itself. So, you know, there's all sorts of things that you can do just to adjust it, just to make it look a little bit better. So we'll do all that. Here we go. So I'm just going to add a little bit more just to the base here, around the edges, and on the fronts of this as well, just up here. There we go. And just bring that around a bit more. And there we go, that's done. And we'll just add a bit of a lighter colour as well. We'll turn off that mask. And we'll just add a dusting as well. So you can do as much as you want on this. I'm just keeping it light for the time being. There we go. And just going to turn that alpha off and just use the brush as it is. And there we go. And that covers the cape pretty much. So now what we want to do is go to our subtools and highlight onto the belt. Now we've already chosen a colour for the belt anyway, so all we're going to do now is just go around and sort of decorate it, just sort of scuff it up a little bit. So I'm going to turn off all the other layers bar the belt. Okay, and we'll keep that one on. Okay, there we go. So I've already subdivided this just like I did with the cape, and let's just hit F, just bring that into play, and there we go. So let's have a look at our colour, and all I'm going to do is just go around and just sort of darken areas up even though it's not quite fake and ambient occlusion, but I just want sort of elements of wear and tear and sort of dirt in these areas. So that's all we're going to do really for this. And the thing when you come to do sort of stuff like this, don't use immediate black. Use a darker colour of the actual colour. Otherwise, it won't look as it'll just look fake. It will just look like the colour black's been added to it as a dirt. So always use a value that's reminiscent of the actual colour of the object that you're doing. So as you can see here, up in the top right hand corner, you can see I've got a brown colour as opposed to making it black. So it's just some food for thought for you. Let's just start to do these areas in here. And you may have noticed the rivets aren't on here. What I'm going to do is keep those silver, so when we're in Maya, we've got a kind of a metallic look to those. Let's just scuff this up a bit more. There we go. So I apologise for my silence. There's not really much to explain while I'm sort of colouring this in. So I'm just going to do underneath all these sort of flap areas. There we go. And of course what we'll get are separate maps for all of these, so we're going to have a little bit of setup to do, but I want to keep it all looking good. This isn't a game model, this is a sort of proper model that you can go ahead and do your sort of animation or whatever with, so we're keeping the textures quite big as well. Hence the UV layout on this. So each pouch has its own tile space or UDIM. So I'm just going to do a little bit of dirt just over the fronts of these, and more towards the back as well, where it's sort of nearer his body, where the the dirt kind of sort of coagulated towards the back there. There we go. And we'll just do the sort of top of the main belt on the inside. Okay, so we'll just zoom out. Just have a look at that. That's looking okay. And then we'll just carry on. Just do in here as well. Let's bring our brush size up. There we go. And again, just sort of give that impression of dirt just under these flap areas. And we'll just zoom in a bit more. There we go. like so. There we go, that's okay. And again, just going to do the top as well. Just going to sort of darken this off a bit as well, a bit more. And we'll just do this on the metal part as well. So we're going to scuff those up very shortly with the deformation, with the sculpting tools. So I'm just going to give this a bit more, even though we're not going to see this per se because of the cape, but I'm just going to darken it up a bit more. Okay, let's just add the dirt, a bit more dirt on the outside of these. So that's good. And this one. And this one as well. There we go. Okay. So just going to add a bit more. Whoops, probably a bit too much on that bit. And just going to darken that interior bit there. Okay, there we go. So what I'm going to do now is on this metal piece, or the buckle at the front, let's just darken that area there just a bit more, and we'll do the same here. And let's just cover that before we do go into that metal area. Whoops, let's just wait for that to save. Good old ZBrush comes into the fold just as you're busy doing something. So we just have to hang for that for a moment. So while that's doing that, I'm just going to quickly pause. Okay, so welcome back from the ZBrush pause. It took a little bit longer than anticipated, so yeah, probably just as well I paused, otherwise you'd be sitting there twiddling your thumbs with me. So but we're back anyway, so that's all good. So just going to finish the sort of the dirt pass, if you will, on the back of this. Let's just do that there. There we go. And just going to add a bit more dirt just around here as well. And there we go. So you may notice there you've got a little bit of intersecting. What we can do is adjust that when we go back into Maya. Because basically what I want to do is try and keep to that thing of the stuff actually not intersecting too much. And I want you to sort of bear that in mind as well, because of you know, if you do decide to rig this sort of thing, you know, you want it to be a bit cleaner than that. So that's something that I will correct once we get back into Maya. Yeah, that's not good practice there, but these things happen, so we'll deal with that once we're back over it. As I say, once we're back in Maya. Okay, so you're going to get a few meshes that do intersect, but for the most part, do try and keep it as clean as possible. Okay, so that's good. Just adding some dirt into that sort of groove area there. And there we go. So what we'll do, let's just brighten this up a little bit more. And we'll just add some sort of scratch type effect. So let's go over to the Z sub, and I'm just going to grab the Alpha 58 and let's just have a quick look. And just sort of add, watch this a little bit, it's not very good. Let's just undo this. Okay, so what we can do is subdivide that again. Okay. And then let's see what we get on the surface of that. Okay, that's better. So just a few sort of, could probably add a bit more detail to that. That's better. Just sort of dents and sort of nicks in these things. There we go. So that's not too bad. Let's make the corner a little bit more untidy, like that. And the thing to do is, when you do these types of deformations where there might be a little bit of an extreme sort of deformation to the mesh, it's always best to use this mesh and then take it back into your chosen software and just update the base mesh that you have there, because the verts would have moved and all that kind of thing, just like we did with the body when we started building that. So any changes we did in ZBrush, we'd update the base mesh back over in Maya. So just bear that in mind as well, even for something as small as this. Okay, so I'm just going to put some scratches just across the front, don't want to overdo it. And then with the spray, I'm just going to put some sort of pitted effect into it as well. So it's like a pitted metal, but not too heavy. And we'll just sort of just a quick dusting really of this. There we go. And it's probably a bit too big. And let's just make that, there we go, sort of a bit more of a dents and stuff into the surface of that as well, just so we can add a little bit more detail just to pick that out. Okay, can't see it too much there, but it's there. So once we get into Maya, we can put a metallic shader on that. So for the pouches, I'm going to use something like we did for the cape. So let's have a look. So we'll give them this kind of leathery kind of look to them. And of course, if you want to isolate these, you can use the polygroups to isolate them in their UV form, and then you can hide objects just like we have done before, but I'm not doing it for this. I just want to try and get this done as it is. So that's all good. We did cover the polygroups in the glove section, so if you want to go back to that, please do feel free. But as we've already covered it, there's no need to cover it again. There we go. That's better. And the same with this one. I mean, you can also break down the model. You can separate all the objects into separate subtools if you need to. But again, we're not covering that in this particular section, so okay. And then just this one to do. And then what we will do is just sort of add a little bit of we'll just change the shapes just a tiny bit, and again, like I said, we'll have to update the meshes over in Maya with these ones. There we go, so that's done, that's fine. Okay, so what we're going to do, just going to add some slight, whoops, let's just go back to our brush, just sort of missed a bit at the front here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just sort of move them around a little bit. Just to give them a bit more of an organic feel, and make them a bit more random as well, without sort of disturbing the rivet areas too much. And just pull this area down, push that in. This one we'll treat it a little bit different. Just pull this out a bit more. Okay. In fact, we'll make the exception on this one. We'll just give this a good yank forwards. There we go, just to pad that out a little bit more. As if there's something in there. And we'll do the same with these two. Just to give them a bit more of an organic feel. I mean, you can do this over in Maya if you wanted. So, there we go. And that should cover that quite nicely. And we'll just round the top of this one off as well. And again, if you wanted, like I say, if you want to, you can do this in Maya. by grabbing some verts and just pulling them around. There we go. Okay, so that should cover, for the most part, the belt and the cape. So let's turn everything back on and have a look and see how it's all looking. And while that decides to catch up, what I'll do, I'll pause that while it catches up. Okay, so we're back. It took a little while to bring that back up. It actually did another quick save. So that's all good anyway. So that's all done. So as you can see, there's the belt, and also the cape is now done as well. So all that leaves us to do now is end this chapter, and then the next one we're going to come back and we're going to export out all of the maps for every piece, and then we're going to head into Maya and start putting that together. And then once that's done, we'll hand it off to David, and he's going to render this guy out in Arnold for us. So until then, I shall see you in the next chapter. Okay, so welcome back. So the last chapter we covered the cape colouring and a little bit of sort of deformation work with some detailing, and we also did the same with the belt. So with that done, what we need to do now is get everything ready to go over into Maya, and we'll get that set up for the sort of the rendering scene for Arnold, which we're then going to handle off to David. So he's going to run you through the Arnold sort of rendering setup for displacements and stuff like that. So that said, what we need to do first is export all our up-to-date meshes. So that's going to include the body, the belt, the glove and the boot, and also the cape. For those of you who've got the first volume with the Batman head, we're not going to be worrying about that, but for those of you that do want that, it's the same thing over in that tutorial. So that all done. So let's just check what subtool we're on. So we're on the cape at the moment, so let's just start at the top just to make it easier on ourselves. So we're going to go to the geometry tab. So at the moment we're on level 6 for the body, which is very, very high. So we're going to be looking at probably 5 million polys plus, I think, for this. So I'm just going to open up the tab. So it's actually okay. So it's actually 3 million polys. So it's not as many as I initially thought it was. So that said, we still want to drop down to about halfway for the moment. So let's see how many we've got now. So we've got 56,000 polys. We're only been rendering out a still, but as you can see, it still left us some nice little bits of detail, and this can actually help your displacement maps at the end of the day as well, as to how they're going to render out, because sometimes you don't want to leave your displacements to do all the work. So if we exported a mesh out of this level, you know, there's not a lot there really for the map for the mesh to do. So you're relying completely on the map to do the rendering, whereas if you start to add a bit more division, you know, we've got these little lines and stuff that are starting to appear. So those in effect are actually, even though the mesh is already starting to displace, they are actually going to be helping the map as well. So you're not just relying solely on the map to give you your, you know, all this lovely deformation that we've sculpted in. So sometimes it's good to leave a little bit in there before you export the mesh out. So that was now going to be 14,000 polys for that. But because we're going to be rendering a still out, I think we can be a bit more generous and go a little bit higher with the mesh. I'm sure David won't mind having a sort of a higher resolution mesh, but also it's going to help us out as well with our displacements. So that's all good. So the other thing as well, while I've brought that up, is because I was actually lucky enough to work at ILM on Age of Ultron, and the model of the Hulk was extremely dense, and you can actually see the pores in areas,
on the face and stuff like that. And a couple of the guys were doing a lot of the muscle deformations on that using blend shapes and stuff. You know, they were working with very high res meshes and stuff. So it just shows you what is sort of going on out there these days. That you know, we're not using sort of game style models, if you will, before rendering. We have to use them at a very high resolution, or a good resolution that's acceptable for the final output. So for this, because we're doing a still, we're going to export out 56,000 polygons, so of the body. So I'm going to jump to export, make sure group is turned off, because otherwise if that's turned on, what happens is it looks at all the UV shells you've created for UV groups, and it will separate your mesh based on that, and it will pop them all into your mesh. Will become separated on the export. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump over to export, and we're going to go to the Batman final mesh export folder, and we're going to call this BT underscore body. Okay, so that should have exported out nicely, and then we're going to go down to the next subtool, which is going to be the glove. Okay, same again, going to go all the way down to export, make sure that's off, that's fine, and then we're just going to go to the actual geometry tab again, subdivision level 7. So that's actually sort of 4 million polys. So I think that's actually more than the body. And the reason is, you know, we've got all this nice detail going on and stuff, but we still want to keep it at a good resolution that's manageable for what we're doing. And if I have a look and see how many polys this is, so that's now 15,000. So we've got a little bit going on, and that's acceptable for me. And again, like I said, we're just doing some stills, so it's all good. So that said, just going to go and double check everything's off. Yep, for grouping is off, and we're going to export our OBJ. Okay, so we're going to call it BT glove left, because it's the left glove. So glove underscore LT. Okay, that's done. So we're going to go to subtools again, and we're going to go to the boot this time. And the boot has got a fair bit of micro, or sort of micro detail in it. So let's just have a look at this in the geometry tab, and also that's running at sort of 700,000 polys, 786,000, beg your pardon. So what we want to do is just drop that down to level 3 and just see where we're at on this at the moment. So that's not too bad, and that's going to give us 12,000 polys for a boot. And because we've got all that sort of deformation and detail going on, I think that's acceptable, and we want to try and keep it as near as we can to the actual model without any sort of funky stuff going on. So we're going to go all the way down to the export, make sure group is turned off, and once again we're going to export this mesh out. So we're going to call it boot left. Okay, export that, that's done. Go back to subtools. Okay, so the mask we've got, the face we've got, those are already done, those were done in the previous tutorial. So what we need to do now is the belt. So the belt is, let's just have a quick look. So that's basically at the moment that's on level 2. So let's just see how many polygons we've got for the belt. So it's very, very high. It's probably a little bit overkill really, but we did add some detail to that. So I think if we drop it down to level 3, let's have a look, what have we got? 68,000, probably still a bit too high for what that is, because they're quite basic shapes. So 17,000 I think will be sort of more than acceptable for this. So it's quite a small object, if you will, even though we can sort of add sort of specular maps and stuff for things to pop on there. So we'll export it out at level 2. So I'm just going to drop down to export again, just make sure grouping is off, and we're going to export the belt. So BT underscore belt. Okay, last subtool, and that's the cape. So the cape's coming in at 5 million polys, way too high. So what I think we need to do, because we had quite a good sort of mesh anyway to begin with the cape, so I think what we can do is just drop that right back down to its base level, because we still want to do a few things to it once we get back into Maya. So let's just have a look at it on the wireframe. See, that's perfectly acceptable. I think anything more than that is just too much. So all we need to do once we get back over into Maya is just sort of soften the normals. So that's done, and then all we need to do is just jump back down, just check our export is off. Yep, the group is done, and we're going to export this out. So BT, and we'll call it cape, and that's done. Okay, so with that done, what we're going to do now is export our color maps. Now I'm only going to do one or two for this, because otherwise it will just get too repetitive for you and it'll just be a bit boring. But I know I've just been through the objects that we've updated, but I wanted to show you the resolution of the meshes that we're actually exporting, so there was method to the madness there. So for the next part, what we want to do is make sure that our resolution for each of these objects is in a good place, so we can make sure we export our sort of high-end texture maps out. Let's just put this one up as well. Okay, so I think what we'll do the body, and also we'll export the cape as well, the colour for those, and then we'll do the rest off camera, so it's not too boring for you. We're going to have to sort of pause anyway while it goes through the motions for that. So I'm going to go to Subtool, I'm going to highlight on the body, just going to double check we're at the highest resolution for that. So let's just pop that all the way back up to level 6. So I've now just opened up the multi-map exporter, which you can find here under Z plugin, and all you need to do is just dock that like so and go from there. So because we're doing the color maps, we're going to be doing texture from Polypaint. Want that at 4K, which is 4096. Flip the V, so once we go over into Maya, it'll be the right way round. So we're going to go to file names. Okay, so at the moment it's just set to JPEG, which is fine, no problems whatsoever. Texture map is going to be called TM, so that's just for you can put whatever you want in here. You could call it diffuse or color or whatever. I'll just show you how that is. So if you click on one of those, we should get a little menu come up like so, and you can do underscore color if that's how you want it to be, and then you can see there that's how it's come out. We could leave this as JPEG, but I think for the moment we'll keep it on, let's make it a TIFF. Okay, so that's all okay, and the UV tile format is a UDIM, which is what we've been using anyway, and we'll hit OK. Okay, that's ready to go, and all we do now is do create all maps. Now you can do all your maps in one go if you want, but I'm just going to do these one at a time so you can see what we're dealing with. So I'm going to hit create all maps, and I'm going to pause. So we'll just go up. So textures and displacement, so we're going to call this body underscore color, as you can see here, and what we'll do actually, we'll give it a 001 as well, just in case we need to adjust anything later on. As you can see, it's a TIFF file, save, and that's now going to create our maps. So what I'm going to do is just go to pause while it does it. Okay, so that map is exported. Our texture from Polypaint is all done. So I've just opened up a browser, and there it is. So it's very, very simple, as you can see, but it's going to do the job that we need it to do. So I'm just going to pop that back. So what I think we should do now is turn that one off, and we're going to export a cavity map. So I'm just going to come down here to the cavity map settings just to make sure that everything is as we need. I'm going to keep all the colours and everything, so it's almost like very similar to when we create ambient occlusion. As you can see, the note has popped up, and it's going to do exactly the same thing as an ambient occlusion map. And what that's going to enable us to do is sort of overlay that over the colour map over into Photoshop, and give us a bit more of a detailed effect. So that's all done. Also, the cavity blur, I'm going to drop that down to 1 just to keep it looking a little bit sort of harsher. Whereas obviously it's called cavity blur, so the higher your value, as it says there, the softer your cavities are going to look. But I'm going to leave that at 1 because then we can control the blur over in Photoshop, which is even easier than having to do it here. And we can adjust it on the fly over there. So I'm just going to drop it down to 1, keep the edges quite hard, and go from there. So this one, that's done. So I'm going to now create all maps for the body for this. So let's generate that. So what we're going to do, we're going to call this body cavity, okay, underscore 001, okay, and we're going to save that. Now I'm going to leave the pause button alone for this, just so you can see actually what happens when it generates it. So it's about to do this, and it's going to go through the motions, and it's going to do some crazy weirdness. There you go. So you can see all the cavities, and there's the map, and it's done. Okay, great stuff. So turn that off, and what we're going to do now is a displacement map. So for the displacement, we're going to open this out, and just going to look at everything that we need really. We could do a 32-bit EXR, so there's always a little bit of tinkering to do with the displacement map. So again, this is just going to depend on your renderer. If you're using Arnold, you can use a 32-bit EXR, and it's all good. And 3 channels as well. So what we'll do, we'll put it on that, and we'll export that out, and go from there. So I'm going to do create all maps, and I'm going to hit the pause button for this, because usually what happens is the displacement map takes a little bit more time to generate. So I'm going to hit that, and I'll pause. So let's just go to BT body underscore dis for displacement and 001, and save that out, and I'm going to pause. Okay, so after a couple of short goes sorting the displacement map out, I've come to the settings of this now. So instead of the initial settings I've given you, what I've done, I've upped the subdivision levels, I've increased the depth sub-pix levels as well, put the mid to 0, 3 channels, 32-bit EXR, and also adaptive. So this should give you a bit more of an intense displacement map, and I've got it open in Photoshop, so we'll just have a quick look at that. There we go. So that's essentially your displacement map now for in 32-bit. So with that done, we're going to go ahead and jump back into ZBrush, and we're going to create all the other maps and stuff, and then we'll come right back, straight back into Maya, and we'll put everything together. So we'll crack on with that, and I shall speak to you very, very shortly. Okay, so all our maps have created, and as you can see, we're back in Maya, and what I've done, I've applied the maps to all the parts of our Batman model. So all I'm going to do is just select the lower half, because we've already done this top part with the head, and I'm just going to bring over the UV editor, and I'm going to show you everything as a layout for now. Okay, so there's the body, there's the cape, the belt, the gloves, and the boots. So you can see that's all laid out nicely now, and all we've done is create shaders and assign the textures to them. As you can see on the body, we've got this sort of normal map kind of look to it, and that's because I did just create a normal map for the body just so we could see the creases and stuff. But In the following section after this, David's going to take over and give you an introductory lesson in how to render a character such as this with displacement over in Maya with Arnold as the render engine. So what we need to do is get all these maps put together onto our character, and then we'll hand that over to David. So this is going to be the last section from me, and David's going to finish off the rest of the tutorial. So that said, what we need to do, as you can see, we're missing one boot, and all I wanted to do was just go through the process that we do to create an extra set of UVs and maps and stuff, because obviously we've got a left glove and a right glove, so I'm going to use the same process I've done to create the extra glove, but in this case it'll be on the boot. So what we need to do first is duplicate our boot, so we go Control D, and in the channel box we're going to hit -1 on the scale X because that's the axis we want to go along. Hit enter, and as you can see the boot is now flipped. Now I'm just going to open up the UV editor. Okay, I'm just going to pop that across onto the other monitor. So what we've got now is basically, let's close the outliner off and we'll keep this open as well. So what we've got is basically just this boot, a flipped version of this boot. Now what we need to do is basically freeze the transformations for this, so everything is set back to 0. Okay, so we're going to hit freeze transformations. That can be found in modify, freeze transformations up there. I just like to have a shortcut on my shelf because it's a lot easier. So as you can see now, the scale X is now just completely back at default at 1. Now that's fine, and you might think this all looks great, but in fact we've got a bit of a problem. So let's have a look. So if we highlight this boot, bring back our texture editor, as you can see the shaded UV in the UV editor is blue, and that's great. Okay, but if we select this one, you can see that it's red, and that's purely because we've flipped the boot, we've frozen all the normals, and what's happened is the UVs are now flipped. So what we need to do is flip those UVs back. So all I'm going to do is right click, select the UVs. Now I'm using this little GUI, this little script that's available for free on Creative Crash, and it's called Xform UV. And what it does, it enables you to do all sorts of bits and pieces like scaling and moving and adjusting your UVs to your heart's content. And what it does have under this extras tab, sorry, I beg your pardon, under the scales tab, are these options: scale U, scale V, mirror U, and that's what we want to do. We want to mirror this UV across on itself, across its axis, so it normalizes all the UVs and everything's facing the right way. So what we have to do is hit mirror UV. As you can see, it's flipped. So now if we zoom in, we can see that it's all the right side facing the right way. And then all we need to do is select that and then just go to the move tab and move it across a UDIM, and we're all good. So our only issue now is that we have two boots but we're sharing the same shader. So what I'm going to do is just move this back over. I'm going to just hide the unselected objects. Okay, so we've just got the two boots shown, so they might look great there. Yeah, if we turn it around we can see we have a seam issue, and it's also visible here, whereas if we look at this left boot, it's not so, yeah, it's fine. So what we need to do is create a map that's going to fit back onto our right hand side boot. So first of all I'm going to create a new shader as well. Okay, so we're going to just create another blend, and all we're going to do is just adjust the specular and reflective attributes. Okay, just to sort of normalize the look of it while we do this. And then all we need to do is jump back over into Photoshop. Now these are the maps that we exported out from ZBrush. This is the color map, and this is the cavity map. We've also got a displacement map as well, and what you'll need to do is just do this procedure in order to get your maps to fit the right way. So first of all, what we want to do is just want to create a nice sort of looking map. So I'm just going to copy the cavity map and paste it into the color map, And what we're going to do is just give it a little bit of darkness. This is what this cavity is for. So I'm just going to go into our blend modes and hit darken. Okay, and you can play with the opacity on that if it's all going to work for you. And in fact, let's go for multiply. There we go, that's better. So you can play around with the opacity to get the sort of look that you want. So I'm just going to knock it back a little bit. I don't want it too dark. Okay, something like that. So we're going to merge that down. That's Control E. Okay, so that's all merged. Now what we want to do now is just grab the image. So image rotation, flip canvas, horizontal. So that's now flipped our boot map across its axis, and then hopefully this will now fit nicely onto our model. But first of all, we've got to save this out. So we're going to go save as, and what we want is a right boot. So we'll overwrite this one here, okay, and we'll just hit save and hit yes, and that's all okay. Okay, so that's all overwritten. And what I do want to just check, see, we've got here a left boot displacement map and a right boot displacement map, and all I've done is the same thing. I've opened up the displacement of the left one in Photoshop, and I flipped it and saved it back out as a right one, and that will all get attached to our model in the Arnold lesson with David that's going to follow this lesson. So back into Maya. So we've got this. So we're going to go and fit or find our colour. There we go. And hopefully that will jump on. No problems. So that's not our seam, that's our painted sort of join in the back of the boot, so that's all good. So there you go, so that's all done. And all it needs to do now is show our character off, and there we go. So that's basically all you need to do. So there's one more thing. Just want to go in and just check all our UVs are where we need them to be. I'm just going to highlight this bottom half of the character. Actually, let's do the face as well. I'm going to bring it all in, and there we go. So it's all looking good. I won't worry about that too much, because we're not using the boot on that face, because obviously because of the shader. It's just the last thing that we've used this end of the model in the UV editor. And there you go. So that's all the UVs all laid out for our character. So what we're going to do now, that's it from me. So we're going to hand you over to David, who's going to render this guy out for you in Arnold. He's going to apply all the displacement maps. We've also got some very fine normal maps on the cape, because I kind of felt that it was kind of a bit of overkill to do a displacement on that, but we're going to keep all that attached. But the main thing is we're going to have the displacements on the body, the gloves, because obviously there's a lot more detail than this to be seen on the gloves themselves, and same with the boots. So it's all good. So we'll end that there, and I hope you've enjoyed what we've done. Any questions for me on the character model itself, do drop me a line over at SimplyMaya.com. I'm usually sort of lurking around the forums there, so do feel free to drop by and give me a shout. So I'm going to end here, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm just going to hand you off to Mr. David Rutter. So see you soon.